Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Bunting Shorts. I'm going to tackle a big topic today. The topic is how to solve racism and division in this world. I'm sure you're dying to know how an old white guy like me is going to solve racism, but I think you'll really enjoy what I have to say. And kind of like my last video, I think when you look at the solution, it's actually really simple, and simple is good. So in my personal opinion, I believe racism to be the number 2 problem that we have in this world. Is really serious. The number 1, of course, is the fact that God's been removed from our society. But right now, we're seeing people divided on every single topic, and they argue on social media and even in stores. I've seen it at gas stations and seen it a lot on airplanes recently too, which is a little frightening when you're still flying. But it just is what it is, and so we've got to get a handle on all this pretty quickly. So I'm going to get into my 2 cents on how I think we can solve it. To just reiterate why I'm doing these series. I boldly will state to anyone who will listen that I believe that we're in the early stages of the tribulation right now. I think as the weeks and months come that you'll agree with that too. And I don't say years because things are accelerating pretty quickly. Most of you, if you look back from maybe say December 2019 to now, you see that too. But things are starting to really ramp up, and I don't know that we have a lot of time. I've got some Bible verses and some videos today. I'm going to show some. This one I'm sure will be longer than I planned, as usual. But my first verse is Matthew 24. This is verses 37 through 39. And sorry, I'm like turning in all these directions. I got to get a studio, or I got to get a better setup for doing these because I got a lot more to do. And I've noticed the lighting, the monitor going on and off. There's just all this stuff I don't like. So I don't know. I'll get to that. But I knew today I had to hurry up in light of kind of what's going on the last few hours. I needed to do this right now. So Matthew 24, verses 37 through 39. But as in the days of Noah were, so also shall be the coming of the Son of Man. For it is as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so also be the coming of the Son of Man. What that's saying is that if this is the tribulation, as I believe, it's going to look just like the flood. Everybody's going to be running around doing their whole life thinking people like me are whack jobs, and then it's going to start raining. Of course, when Jesus comes back, he's going to destroy the world by fire, so it'll be a little different destruction, but nonetheless bad all the same. So I see the lack of discernment in a lot of people right now that just, and especially ones that probably should know and should recognize the signs. And so I point that verse out because I think it's really important to use the Bible as our guide. And again, I think it proves a lot of the things that we're seeing right now. So I'm actually hopeful that we can reverse the course and get some more time. But if we're going to do that, it's going to require more action. And really, it's going to take unity and repentance to do that. And while I'm extremely hopeful, we don't have a lot of time. We just don't. If you look at some of the stated goals of the people that are running this world, 2025 is a pretty big marker for them, and that's really not very far away. I don't want to see death and destruction come upon anyone, but even the most skeptical person has to be a little bit concerned about what they see going on in the world today. It's chaos everywhere. Last week, there was a school shooting at my old high school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This week, there was a stabbing at both my sons go to high school here in Indianapolis, and there was a stabbing, and this person is in critical condition, so it wasn't like somebody got jabbed with a fork. And this is pretty serious. Things are ramping up. We've got crime. My Citizen app goes off 4, 5, 6 times a day, and we don't have any crime, or we didn't have any crime where I live. So I got 2 housekeeping issues from video 1. I've mentioned these before. I do these things in like a stream. I don't edit, except that I go back in and add pictures or videos or any of the stuff, but I do not go back and edit one single bit of these videos. And there's a reason for that. I do that to really ensure that you can see I'm being honest. For those of you that believe, I want you to see these things are spirit-led. Like, some of the stuff I couldn't come up with on my own. I'm just not that crazy, right? So I want you to at least accept that. Because I do it in this manner, I don't always say exactly what I meant to say, and sometimes I just don't get all the stuff out. And so if I go back and I watch these things, I recognize something big that I miss, I really feel compelled to go back and clean that up. So that's what I'm going to do. I mentioned gathering with people like-minded, and I really want to clarify that. We should always pray for our enemies. We should always pray for people that we don't agree with. We should always agree to discuss things with people. We should always serve others, especially those that are less fortunate than us. That is absolutely critical. But I just wanted to say that, we are in dangerous times, and you do have to at least be careful about who you fully trust. That doesn't mean that you can't help other people. The way I see this world right now, it's being intentionally divided. If you think about the jabbers versus the unjabbers, or Republican versus Democrat, whatever, it's almost half and half. I mean, people are being split right down the middle. And the Bible actually said this stuff was going to happen. And that's what I see right now. So we're misdefining the category that this division is actually going into. But my next verse is Matthew 13, 24 through 30. This is the parable of the wheat and the tares. Another parable, and this is Jesus, by the way, speaking. So another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. That's people putting evil in people's minds. But when the grain had sprouted and produced a crop, then the tares also appeared. So the servant of the owner came and said, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? And he said to him, An enemy has done this. The servant said to him, Do you want us to go and gather them up? And he said, No, lest while you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let's grow both together until the harvest. And at the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, First gather together the tares and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat in my barn. That parable is Jesus talking to his disciples. He is laying out his entire return and really how the whole world will work until he comes back. He's basically saying that we're here. Some are going to do good, some are going to do evil, but essentially he's not going to stop it. Let them go together. And at the time of his return, he is going to divide them in half. And for those of you that believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, right here, this clearly says that the tares are going to be called up first. They're going to be bundled, they're going to be burned. So it's just another way to refute that. Everybody thinks all the believers are going to get pulled up, and then he's going to come do this. Well, it doesn't work that way. This is what comes first. And that's the lines I see people getting divided into right now. And so I believe, if we're going to really fix things, we've got to get people out of that terror category. That's really important. We don't want to see anybody bundle or burn, especially people like really close to us that we know, that we at least have a chance with. So that's what I see. I think it's a good time to work towards that. But because we're near the end and there's a lot of tares out there and they're a little crazy, you do really need to be careful about, I guess, who you might share your most intimate details, whatever plans that you may have. I also said in my last video, there were 2 reasons I thought God chose for me to be this messenger. I'm a Reform Center, as you know. God loves that story, and I think maybe I'm just a little bit more equipped to talk to people like me. I mean, I still have sinful thoughts and tendencies, and I haven't abandoned any of my friends. I love them all. So my point is I'm engineered better for that. I'm not engineered for as many righteous people, I guess, but that's okay. The second reason I stated is really this. So if you've watched some of the first videos, I really started off with 3 of these. The first was Message of Hope. That was a story of supernatural events surrounding the death of my mother and my nephew, which happened like 6 weeks apart, both very unexpected. But we had a ton of supernatural things happen that not only me, but my sister, my brother-in-law, kids, friends, all witnessed. And I've got pictures and documentation in that video. It's a really uplifting video. Then my second one was Message of Salvation. That was my kind of like 7-year descent into judgment, where I almost like went bankrupt and lost everything. But then I rose back out of that, and from that I gained faith. And I'm far from perfect, but I'm at least a better believer, and at least I think I have a better read on what's going on. But again, there was a lot of supernatural stuff in that I just can't explain. And then the third video, Message for Your Salvation, that's the one that probably scared people the most. That was a video that detailed what was dreams I had over a period of almost 4 years, hundreds of dreams. And as I, made a collage out of all of them, and I look back on them now, they were very specifically visions of the tribulation. I saw scene after scene after scene after scene of things that will happen. And it wasn't as much of like John from, on the Isle of Patmos view, where it was 50,000 feet up. I mean, these were a little more like, these kind of things are going to happen. So if you're looking to like survive through all that, watch the video. There's some good information about that. Most importantly, though, in that video, I was shown the sign in the sky of the second coming. And you think I'm crazy? Fine, I don't care. I really don't. But it's in there. And he shared that with me, for one, because he knew I'd do these videos. But I think, two, every chapter of the Bible has something in it supernatural, something that if it happened right now, most people wouldn't believe it. Now, I'll tell you this much, I never questioned any of this. All these things that happen, I knew exactly what they are, and I went with it all the way. And here I am talking about it. So, am I crazy? No. I trust. I trust what I read. I trust what I saw. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before. There's a lot of dreams I left out. At least 50% of those dreams came true. And they were all for my benefit. They were all something positive that happened for me or my family. If you ever question the source of where that information came from, I think that would clear it up quite concisely, as I like to say. So that's it. There's nothing special about me. Those are just the 2 things. That's it. And if there's a third, it's just that I'm willing to do this because I do care about everybody, and I don't want to see this happen. And I know we can change it. So, speaking of signs, I think in that last video that I did, the Message for Your Salvation, the reason I called it that was, if you watched it and you believed in it, you'd realize that there wasn't 100 years left. So you needed to render yourself to Jesus now. That was a big part of the message there. But I shared something in that one, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, it was a Message of Hope. I'm getting myself confused. But I had caught some orbs on a camera that's in my backyard. And it happened again. So I'm going to play that now. It's only about 25 seconds. But for those of you who said this is bugs, I mean, whatever. It's not bugs. I've certainly seen bugs fly, near a camera before, but they don't look like that. They don't leave trails like that. And I'm not sure that any of them can set off the camera because it's not that sensitive. Like I said, whatever. You can also look at the video on the top left to start. You'll see something weird there. And then at about 20 seconds, right in the middle, like kind of far off in the distance, you'll see something else like pop up and go away. So I don't know what it is. I just think it's a sign I've been really down on what's going on in the world today, and my kids' school, and just, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot to carry around, and I looked at it as a sign from above to say, you know what, stay strong, don't be scared. I told my sister about this. It was last week. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked up, and there was like a lady standing there, and she reached her finger out to me, and it scared me to death. I mean, I just about jumped out and ran out of the bedroom, but something about it was very peaceful. And I heard a voice that sounded like my mom's, but was not her. I just felt like it might have been her, but it said, "You can do anything." And I was like, wow. And unfortunately, that only lasted for a day because I got sucked into this news cycle and all the stuff that's going on. And so I allowed myself to be overcome by all that. But, you know, it's these kind of things that if you're paying attention and you believe, or they're messages to help guide you. This is going to be a tough time. Even if we get more time, we're still going to have to fight for it. So let's get to the topic, because if I don't, this thing's going to be 10 hours long. What is racism? I don't like Wikipedia, but everybody else does. So let's see what they say. Racism is a scientifically false belief that groups of humans possess different behavioral traits corresponding to physical appearance and can be divided based on the superiority of one race over another. I was kind of blown away that was actually out there, because that's exactly where this is going. Racism is false. Look it up for yourself. I'm going to put this up for as well. So again, as no surprise will come when I'm looking for answers, I go to the Bible. So as I thought about race, I really thought about creation and how things came to be, and how the people here, like me talking to you right now, actually ended up here. And you really have to go back to not the beginning of the earth being created, because all that was destroyed, because God was sorry he ever created man. So he brought a flood about, wiped off everybody except for one man and his family, and a male and female version of every animal that was alive at the time. And so if you're curious about, well, I need scientific proof that was real. Well, there actually is quite a bit. And one thing I'd like to point out is the number of religions or cultures that have a flood as part of their story. Obviously, Christianity, there's no surprise there. Ancient Mesopotamia, but a lot of people didn't know that, but they had a flood story. The Aztecs, they had a flood story. The Greeks, with all their gods, also had a flood story. The Hindu and Buddhist religions, guess what? They've got a flood. Even China, who is really an atheistic country, has a flood story as part of their heritage. The Norse, the Vikings, they have a flood story. The Aborigines, we don't hear much about them, but they indeed believe in the same thing. The Chippewa tribe, the Indians that we had here. I mean, I can go on and on. Now, I'm done reading that, and I'm not going to flash that screen up. You can certainly Google that. It's easy to find. I think it's quite amazing that so many different people from so many different parts of this world actually have that story. It's actually pretty similar from place to place. So I want you to consider that. Is there geological evidence? Well, you'd be surprised to know that there's actually quite a bit. I'm not going to get into every little bit and piece of that today. I just want to talk about Robert Ballard. He's one of the most famous undersea archaeologists in the world. I think in 1985, he was doing a study in the Black Sea, and he was kind of trying to prove this or unprove it. But he found evidence. He actually unearthed in a submarine an ancient shoreline in the Black Sea off the coast of Turkey. And he used carbon dating for some of the seashells and things around there. Anyways, he literally traced that city that he found to around 5000 BC, right about the time of the flood. And it just blows me away that you don't hear more about that. And this is a great time for me to mention, I went to the Ark Encounter in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, about 4 weeks ago. We did it at the beginning of the school year. Everything in my spirit knew this was going to be a terrible, terrible year for the kids at school. And I didn't really know what to do to help them because they're 9th and 10th grade. They don't really listen to me. But I thought in my mind, I was like, what can I show them? And I had heard about the Ark, so I was like, I got to go see this. It was awe-inspiring. I mean, it's full size, first of all. So when you get in the parking lot, you look up, you're like, whoa. And this is like wooden cruise ship, like, sitting right there. And it was an amazing and uplifting experience. But there is proof after proof after proof after proof in that Ark of what scientists have found. And of course, there's plenty of scientists that argue with all that stuff too. But listen, when you have somebody clearly say something didn't happen and they can't really give you a counter as to why, or they just say it's just not right, that's not really an answer. If you want to go to Elizabethtown and look, there's proof. It's just there. They estimate it takes about 2-3 weeks to go through it all. It's just a lot of stuff, but I was blown away. So I believe that the flood is settled science. Therefore, I'm going to say I can trust the Bible. So if the flood is real, what happened next? Well, as we know, they parked the ark on land, and Noah's family and all the animals followed the command from God and were fruitful and multiplied. So they ended up, there's one argument actually, and this was so well explored on the ark experience, but that Noah couldn't have had every breed of every animal. Well, that's a good point. That'd be like 50 of the ships that he had. But what he did is he had one of each. Like a dog is a great example. And there was a great video that outlined how one breed of dog, if you took it to a different climate or a different area or part of the world, that dog would over time, adapt to its circumstances. It would change some. It's not quite the Darwin evolution, but inside of all of us, we adapt to our surroundings. So that's what he believed happened. And it's really, again, I don't want to get into all the details of that here. I'm just kind of pointing out something. So I think it's really important to at least consider that. What he did, though, is he had a male and female of every animal that was on there. And that's how he's able to repopulate the earth. Again, if you haven't had a chance to go, I really encourage you to go. They also have a creation museum, which is like a life-size walking version of the Bible, where you're like cruising around on your feet through it. And so you can, for a lot of people like me, you read something, it's cool, but if you live it and like experience it, it's like a whole other thing. So do that. And the whole purpose of this video, where I'm going with this, is I just at the end, my kids were like there. I think we were there for 2.5 hours. This is a long time for them because they wanted to, go do something with their friends. But at the very end, I said, what is the one thing that you learned? Just tell me. And they both looked at me and said that we're all the same. We're all the same. That's what that experience proves. So I haven't been the best husband, dad, whatever. And I'd fight with it every day. But I taught them one thing that no one can take away. So I'm not asking for a reward. I'm just excited that I could give that to them because that's a great gift. So people grew fast, animals grew fast. Next thing you know, they're building cities. Well, Nimrod comes along. He is the great grandson of Noah. Of course, there's a lot of speculation about what else he might be, but we won't get into that today. He became the mightiest warrior and ruler. This is post-flood time, at least. He created a one world and one religion system. May sound familiar to where we are now. He built what's called the Tower of Babel. And I'm sure you've heard of this. A lot of people say, oh, he's just babbling. Well, there's a reason that they say that. So let's read. This is Genesis 11. We're going to read chapters 1 through 8. The Tower of Babel. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick ovens instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be scattered over the face of the earth. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower and the people were building. And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their languages so they won't understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. This is why it's called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the entire earth. Just so you know, the Ark Encounter people are getting ready to build a Tower of Babel, and the reason that they are is they want to use it as a positive way to confront racial tensions and the feeling of equality in this world. I think it's great. So as you see, God got really angry. He said, hey, this isn't what you guys are supposed to be doing down here. You guys are trying to build yourself a stairwell into heaven so you can go back and forth, and that's not how the rules work. So he took everyone that was here post-flood, and we're only talking about 2 generations, right? Great-grandson. And he changed their languages, but he scattered them everywhere. So, we start off with Adam and Eve. Every bit of life on the earth emanated from them. And then God wiped us away. And so then he gave us Noah. He saved Noah and his kids. And every single living person right now on this planet is a direct descendant of Noah. Did you know that? I mean, it's really about as simple as I can state it. And if that's true, then what are we? We're family. That's it. So, I'm going to make a few bold statements here. Race is a lie. We are all the same. We only differ in heritage, culture, language, and appearance. But inside, we're all 100% the same. And that means that we're all family. All of us. We're born of God. Some serve Satan, but he can't create life. He can only destroy it. And if you'll join me and accept the simple truth, then there really is hope for us all. And some people does it matter anymore? Well, it does. Why do I call it the number 2 problem? I had a really pretty major revelation a couple days ago as I was thinking about all this. And, everybody talks about 666, 666. It's like they think that it's the number of a man. And that's exactly what the Bible says it is. It's the number of a man or men. How about that? In a lot of the dreams that I shared with you guys, I saw earthquakes and I saw floods. And I saw a lot of destruction and a lot of death. And I assumed that it was from, outside of our realm here, outside of the world, from heaven or whatever. But you know what I believe today is, and I think you can see clearly, is the enemy is us. We won't be destroyed by asteroids or planetary collisions. We'll destroy ourselves. I mean, can't you see that? Everybody's at odds with everybody about everything, and they're ready to go to war over it. And for what? I just don't understand why. And there's people that I see on Facebook that I knew that I grew up with that would gladly plunge a needle into my kid's arm with no concern about what it might do to them so they could be safer or their kids could be safer. That is not what family does. That's not what we're created to do at all. So it's sad to me that people can't and don't know this and that they think like that. But again, I don't see some asteroid coming and wiping off every bit of life. We're going to take it from ourselves. Some of us freely and some of us not. That's just the way I see it. So I believe if we accept each other as brothers and sisters and we help one another, just as you would any member of your family, we can actually save ourselves. You know, I've realized another big truth is that most people don't realize they've been born into war. And, you know, the minute you were born, you were placed into the middle of a spiritual war that's raged since the beginning of time between God and his second in command, Satan. You know, God threw him out of heaven with his band of angels. And they've been working in the background down here fighting him. And we've been in the middle the whole time. But it's now manifested itself in the physical realm. And you're either going to fight in this thing and you get through it, or you're just going to lay down and die. But you don't have a choice at this point because it's here. That doesn't mean we can't get more time. There's no, despite what you think you've been told, there's no 7-year tribulation. It could be 1,000 years. But during that 1,000 years, we could have 980 of peace and 20 years of suffering. You know, we just have to get together and ask for that. But, you know, I think that you can't run from this. I mean, people are like, well, we should go here, we should do this. I mean, if God tells you to go somewhere, you got to go. But you can't escape this. This war is here. It's spiritual. It involves God and every creation, every bit of creation he's ever made. So you can't run from it. So you got to stand tall and fight it. You know, think about this too. Why would we be plotted against one another? Why? Because it's very clear to me that's being done. So consider if you're the ruling elite. Now, by my best guess, and this is a very generous guess, there's maybe 1 million of them total that really are in on the whole thing. I mean, they have pay people and, you know, there's people loyal to them. Maybe that number's more than that, but there's almost 8 billion of us. So how does that few of amount of people control 8 billion people? Well, it's actually pretty simple. They use lies and deceit. And when I say that, you know, as I've gone through my spiritual awakening, I've come to understand that just about everything I've been told is a lie. And I think during this pandemic that's been really front and center for a lot of people too, because I mean, how many times have government officials said one thing and done another, and then they come back and say, oh, if you just do this, then this. Oh, but we didn't mean it like that. It's going to be this. Lie after lie after lie after lie. I used to just think it was, you know, today, but it's been that way forever. And as I go back and I see videos and things from, you know, 30 years ago, I see it there too. It's been there. It's just really front and center now. The number 2 reason is fear. I mean, what do I need to say more about that than today? Everybody's scared to death of dying or getting sick. I made it really clear in my last video what I think. And I think the only thing you should be scared of is not getting into heaven. That's it. And be a little scared of God too. Because he has a power to do a lot to you. But think about the Wizard of Oz. They kind of put it out there that there's this little guy behind a curtain, you know, controlling this machine. And, you know, they were scared to death of this guy the whole time. And they saw the truth. And that really is the world that we live in. There's no question of it. You may think I'm crazy for saying these kind of things, but they put it out there. There's some kind of sick rule that they have where they tell you this stuff in advance. And most people are so blind in their football or they're drinking or whatever, they miss all of this stuff, but it's right out there front and center. It's very actually easy to see. And I get a lot of my information from books. If you need any to help you understand this, you reach out to me because I've got plenty. The third thing they do, and this is the last, they constantly divide and confuse people. Again, 1 million versus 8 billion, math doesn't work, but if you can get a sizable percentage of those 8 billion against one another, we're doing their work for them. We're fighting each other when the truth is that we should be united and working together to get rid of them, because our job's easy. Their job's actually, I mean, you got to give it to them. It's pretty hard. I can't believe they've gotten away with it for so long. You know, all this orchestration is just for control. And I think the lies and deceit have a darker purpose in that they, keep you from God so they can steal your soul. But whatever you think about what I'm saying, I promise you this is all true. So the thing is, about today is that you never really saw the control. It was never visible because it was always in the shadows. And it is not in the shadows anymore. It's front and center, and they're being very oppressive. We actually have it pretty good in the United States compared to most countries. I mean, just look at Australia. It's horrifying. They have started building concentration camps there. They are doing horrific things to the people there. I haven't seen a lot of them stand up yet, but it's getting bad down there. That's what's coming here as well if we don't do something about it. And they don't care anymore because this is the end game for them. They're all in, and they basically assume that they've won, and maybe they have. If this is the end, Jesus is going to be back in a few months, then this is the end, and there's nothing we can do about it. But again, I just don't think we're quite there yet. I don't. So what now? Let's be honest. Have I ever had a racist thought, or have I ever said anything racist? I have. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being hateful. I'm sorry just for being ignorant. I really am. I'm sorry that I didn't know the truth. I bet every one of you, I bet every person that I know has had the same thing happen. And it's okay. I'm not mad at you. I don't want you to be mad at me either. But we didn't know the truth. The truth is we're family. And I would never have thought those things if I didn't know. But the second truth is we were taught. Racism is taught. And it wasn't taught to us by our parents. I grew up in North Carolina. It wasn't taught to me because I grew up in the Deep South. It was taught by the people that run this world so that they could confuse and control us. And that's it. So, we're the victims here. But we have the ability to change that right now. So, have I benefited from being white? Of course I have. Who do you think runs this world? It's a bunch of old white people, probably older than me. It's terrible, but that's just the way it is. And I'm sorry for that too. Can I renounce my whiteness? My old pastor has talked about that quite a bit. And what would that accomplish though? I'm like half a shade from being an albino. So, I could renounce it, but I'm still white. And that's not who I am. It's just the color of my skin. So what would it accomplish? Should I be responsible for paying reparations? And would that fix anything? Well, I got a couple examples for you on how that won't. First is Evanston, Illinois. You may not have heard, but they passed a reparations bill, I believe at the beginning of this year, but it may have been last year. They funded it with a tax on, I believe, marijuana. It is, even in the city's estimation, predominantly funded by minorities because the majority of them are buying the marijuana that's taxed. So, how insane is that? They're using their money to pay reparations. And there's like a gazillion laws and rules about how you get the money and how it can be used. It is an absolute cluster. So I think, number one, you come up with some lame brain idea like that, it's just not going to work. But number two, let's see what the Bible says about that. 2 Corinthians 12:14 says, this is the King James Version, "Behold, for the third time I'm ready to come to you, and I will not be burdensome to you, for I seek not yours, but you. For the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children." You have to dig a little deeper on this verse, but there's many others. Google it if you need to. The debt of a parent isn't supposed to transfer down to the child. It's just that way. So something our great-grandparents or other people did, biblically, God is not going to allow that to be passed down. So aside from the fact that it doesn't work, it's just going to make God mad. And it's not going to fix anything because the people that are going to have to pay it are going to be angry, and perhaps they'll fight back about it. So I actually think it's just another tactic to make people mad. And listen, if it worked, I'd say do it. Pastor Rick Wiles has the best idea I've ever heard. He said, maybe we should make it illegal to be a billionaire and take all that money from the people who have abused us and pitted us against one another and lied to us. We take their money and use that for reparations. I'd be down with that right now. I would. Because I do believe that every one of us should have equal right to opportunities, schooling, housing, food. It should be that way, and it's not. So we've got work to do, but we can do it together. And again, I want to reinstate again what my kids learned at the Ark. We're all the same. So all the ideas I mentioned earlier, they will fail, 100% fail. The only path forward is acceptance of the truth and a reconciliation. I'll tell you truthfully, I'm just going to lay it out here because this is what I think each one of us needs to say and do. So I'm talking to all of you right now, every one of you. I'm sorry for my ignorance. I accept each one of you as my family. I don't care if you're white, black, Indian, Asian, trans, gay, whatever. I don't care. You're my family and I'll never judge you. I ask you to do the same for me and everyone else here. I ask you not to force me to agree with you. I ask you not to force me to change my beliefs to accommodate yours, and I'll never ask you to do those things either. I ask you simply to exist with me as family and in peace. I consider you my brother, my sister, my mother and father, whichever is appropriate. It's fine for you to believe and for you to do what you want. I'm glad to share the truth with you, but only God's the judge, not humans. So if we're going to get our lives back, to me, that's the only way. There's no medicine, there's no policy, there's no amount of money or laws or anything else that's going to make it happen. And there's certainly no leaders out there that have the answers either. The answer is us and God. So we've got to accept ourselves. We've got to accept that we're family. That's it. In closing, hey, I'm under 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to hurry this thing up. Because you know what? The only thing short about these things is me. I just can't. I don't know. I thought I'd do these in 15 minutes, but it's just not working out. My favorite leader of all time is MLK. And I'll tell you why. You know, in a lot of the modern movies, you see him painted as a womanizer and just a lot of bad stuff. I don't know if it's true, and I just don't care. What I like about him is the things that he said and that he did. And that's really how I rate anybody in this world, is by what they contribute and the things they say and they do for others. So I also, you know, when you think about him, don't forget he was murdered in cold blood on television. So, I mean, he must have been pretty close to the mark for them to just brutally take him out. I mean, kind of like JFK, you always just wonder about why, you know. But anyways, I want to read you in closing a quote that really sums up his beliefs, but also what I just told you about. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And that was from the 60s. He saw exactly what I'm seeing then. Of course, you know, it's amped up to level 12 now, but I really want you to consider that and things I said, because I hate to say it like I know I'm right and like this is it, but I do know I'm right. You know, for some reason, this has become a responsibility of mine to point out these really basic things, but I'm really excited about that. I'm honored, and I hope that you'll consider it, and I hope that there's a way we can reconcile and move forward, because I know we can. I know we have time, but we've got to do it. We've got to do it together. Take care. Have a great weekend. Be a blessing to your neighbors and in this world. Thanks.